Imagine not being able to read the paper because your hands were shaking. Imagine not being able to read newsprint as your world faded to black. The National Federation of the Blind, Newsline, Indiana. Monthly Report. With your host, Lee Martin, and co-host, Florence Myers-McSwine.
Well, good morning. We want to welcome you back to the National Federation of the Blind, Newsline, Indiana Monthly Report Show. We are very excited today to have a lot of new programs on the National Federation of the Blind, Newsline. And this is a program that's for blind and visually impaired and print challenged citizens, those with the shaky hand syndrome, dyslexia, and those that are some print challenged. It's a very new, innovative program of the National Federation of the Blind, and that's called the NFB Newsline. It's located here in Indiana. In Indiana, we have 14 publications, as well as the Indianapolis Star, all the way from Hammond to Lafayette to Muncie to Evansville and Terre Haute throughout the state of Indiana. Most people enjoy the Indiana Business Journal and a plethora of other Indiana publications. We also have another publication that's getting a lot of hits right now, and that's the Indianapolis Recorder. So there's information in the newspaper for everyone. When you're blind, as you've seen at the top of our show, the intro, that blindness, when you lose your print, when you have blind issues going on, and it makes it very difficult. But this newspaper publication, NFB Newsline, has the answer to help individuals have the privilege of reading again, independently reading their publications, newspapers and magazines. So we have two guests. We have our guest today, and we'll be right back here shortly with our guest, Mr. Ray Montgomery, and co-host Florence McSwine. This is a great service you don't want to miss what we're talking about. Thank you. See you shortly.
If you or someone you know is visually impaired or print challenged, the National Federation of the Blind has a resource you need.
I use NFB Newsline when reading Hammond Northwest Times.
Using NFB Newsline, I read the Christian Science magazine.
Dad, you read Jerusalem Post, too.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Live the life you want. Read NFB Newsline.
It's free. Thousands of Indiana residents feel isolated from the world due to vision problems. Thanks to the National Federation of the Blind, visually impaired Hoosiers can hear newspapers, circulars, and magazines from across the globe.
I'm a Vietnam veteran. I'm blind. I read Stars and Stripes on NFB Newsline.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Subscribe free to NFB Newsline. Yes, welcome back to the National Federation of Blind, Newsline, Indiana Monthly Report Show. And our guest today, and we have Mr. Ray Montgomery. How are you doing, Ray?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Lee?
I'm doing just fantastic.
All
and
right.
how are you doing, co-host Florence Myers-McSwine?
I'm great, and it gets even better.
Okay, praise the Lord. So today we have our guest, Mr. Raymond Montgomery, and our topic for today's show is actually a topic that's probably near and dear to a number of people's hearts. We have a lot of situations going on in our communities and a lot of results from people's actions that aren't so favorable. We have today's show is covering a topic that's called gun violence and blindness. And Mr. Ray Montgomery here has been impacted with that, and we'll get into that a little bit later into our show. But Ray, you're a subscriber of NFB Newsline, am I correct?
No, yes, I am.
Okay, and what do you, how do you benefit from the service in your business as well as your daily life?
Well, it gives you that opportunity to definitely keep up with what's going on in your local city, local town. So I definitely encourage individuals who want to stay current on affairs that's prevalent to them to sign up for NFB Newsline, because if you want to know what's going on with the newspaper, you're not able to read it if you have a visual impairment. So that's one thing I think that people should definitely want to stay up on, is current affairs within their own city or state. Definitely with the Sports Illustrated magazines is one thing that once you lose your sight, you're not able to access those magazines that you like to browse through. You know, when you're at the store, you want, oh, that's Sports Illustrated. I want to see what they're talking about LeBron today. But you're not able to do that if you're visually impaired until the NFB Newsline. So definitely a great tool. I definitely encourage everyone who is suffering from some type of visual ailment or other disabilities that don't allow you to read, to definitely subscribe to the NFB Newsline.
Yeah, that publication itself, you have the opportunity to read articles independently yourself. What device do you actually use to access the publications?
I use my iPhone.
Oh, so you use the iPhone app.
Yes.
Okay, and what's your tool of choice, Florence?
No, I also use the iPhone. I prefer using the app as well.
Okay, so that's a very popular tool. There are other tools that we use, such as our computers. You can access it on your computers. And a lot of seniors still like to use the landline phone. And then we also have a device that we call, the digital talking player from the the State Library. And also the Victor Reader Stream. That's a great tool. And there's other tools out there that we use to access this service. You can access this service 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So how often do you use the service? How often do you read?
Probably about 3 times a week.
Okay, and you're from the Hammond-Gary area?
Yes, I'm from Northwest Indiana, yes.
And you keep up with the city that way?
Oh, definitely. You're able to read the Post-Tribune, the Times, definitely know what's going on within your own city as well. So, and even across the world, across the country. So that's definitely a great tool. I definitely, like I said, encourage everyone to utilize that tool.
Now, we know we have been impacted in this country with a southern portion of our country with bad weather. And you can access, weather information on NFB Newsline as well. It gives a very detailed weather information all over the country, matter of fact, all over the world. So we would encourage people to check out the NFB Newsline weather. You can go to breaking news segment of the newspaper and read weather alerts as well nowadays. Because oftentimes when there's a weather alert in our communities, we'll hear a beep or something running across the screen. There's a scroll that runs across the screen and the beep. And that information that runs across the screen does us no good at all. So having the access to the weather information gives us great awareness of what's going on and gives us a head up so we can head to safety as well. So that's a great tool on that. What do you think about?
And what I like about the news is that it populates during the day. So as the things change throughout the day, you're getting that information. I also enjoy myself having access to the magazines because there are several magazines there.
What's your favorite magazines?
Well, I've got a lot of favorite magazines. I know that me personally, my favorite is Guidepost, but it also has ESPN, Associated Press. Goodness, it's got I don't know, Ray, if you like to cook or anything like that, but it's got recipes on, it's got magazines on recipes. Oh, goodness. Jet Magazine is also included. Family Fun, Family Circle. For people who like the computer, there's PC Magazine and Wired. And Lee, there's also a magazine that I know that you would like is GQ. GQ Magazine is also...
Well, I was reading the Glamour Magazine the other day when we were out exhibiting. A young lady wanted to know more about fashion. And we had the Glamour Magazine. She was very excited about that, a young student. So I was reading the Glamour Magazine. Can you imagine a man reading the Glamour Magazine? But I thought it was very interesting, some of the detailed information they shared.
Very detailed.
Dealing with, from young women growing into adults and also seniors. So I just think that's a good magazine as well. And many of our seniors love to read the AARP magazine and the AARP newsletter. I don't think you're ready for that, right? Ray?
A few more years now.
You'll get your card.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Goodness, there's magazines for everybody.
There's some magazines in there for students, adults, youth, and seniors. So
Definitely. One thing they do have that I really like is the TV listings. If you do not have a TV provider that the TV that actually talks to you or anything, there's no way you're going to know what's really coming up next. You may miss your favorite show. So definitely the TV list is one thing I definitely...
And with the 70% unemployment rate in the blind community or in the disabled community as a whole, you also have job listings. And it's a very easy program to use. You just put in your profile, which includes your zip code, the type of career that you're looking for, the amount of pay that you're looking for, anywhere in the country. And it'll give you a great search and come back with a plethora of jobs, that's suitable for your careers. So I think that's another great tool to have. And there's so many things in there that you have to take your choice, pick and choose. Seniors love to read the obituaries. And that has been very useful and helpful to me, being as though I'm a transplant to the Indianapolis area. I can go back and keep up with what's going on in my hometown of Muncie, Indiana. So, Ray,
yes.
We know that you have been impacted in your life through gun violence, and we're going to take a short break and come back. And we want you to talk a little bit about how this has impacted your life, how you have overcome the disparities and actually have triumphed to the point that you are today. I think this is a great topic and a great segment of our program. In our Hot Topics, you want to stay tuned and listen to Mr. Ray Montgomery when we come back talking about gun violence and blindness. We'll see you shortly.
If you or someone you know is visually impaired or print challenged, the National Federation of the Blind has a resource you need.
I am a CFP practitioner, and I happen to be blind. I rely on NFB Newsline to keep me current with Wall Street Journal and the Financial Times.
Hoosiers can hear Indiana magazines, circulars, national magazines, and information from across the globe. Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
We are the nation's blind, and we read NFB Newsline.
As I travel the nation, I read NFB Newsline.
I live in Valparaiso, Indiana, and I listen to my local news on NFB Newsline.
As a student, I enjoy reading current events on NFB Newsline.
Learn more by calling 855-963-6476 or visit nfbnewsline-in.org.
Subscribe free to NFB Newsline today. And welcome back to the National Federation of the Blind Newsline Indiana Monthly Report. And as we said on our last break, prior to going to break, We have a guest here today that went from despair and has actually triumphed, wouldn't you say, Florence?
Yes, sir. I call it from trials to triumphs,
And I know we're just so blessed to have you even living, Ray, with our topic today, gun violence and blindness. Now, you lost your sight through gun violence.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, you want to share a little bit about that?
Well, yeah, it's about 20 years ago now. So 20 years ago, almost like a month ago, I lost my sight. I was 17 years old. Me and a friend, we were just having a good Saturday night, riding around, hanging out as, you know, young teenagers do at the time. Just graduated high school 2 months prior. So, you know, I was working, but I was still, you know, we were just riding around and doing what teenagers do. One night we had actually got stopped by a train. At the time we was in Gary, Indiana. Got stopped by a train, and someone just decided out of the blue that they wanted to rob us. So he came to the car, and he was on my the driver's side. I wasn't driving at the time, but my friend was actually driving. Came to his side, and I'm like, who was he talking to? So, because I really didn't, you know, I couldn't see the guy. I didn't really know what was going on at the time, because he was kind of quiet. But then, you know, he came to my side of the car. Probably shouldn't have got out. Before I can get out, he shot me point blank range in the head. Shot multiple times. Left me and my friend was shot multiple times. He went to the local gas station and was able to call his mother at the time. And, you know, then once after all that, I believe the ambulance came and I was taken to the hospital.
Well, how did that impact your family? I'm trying to get to the immediate scene with your mom and your immediate family once they got that news that this had happened to you.
Yeah, that's devastating right there. You know, definitely to your mother who gets a call. Your young siblings, with my younger brother and my sister, we and her was about the same age. So at the time, you know, it impacted everyone around us. Everyone, because it's something that you're not ready to deal with. It's something that you've never dealt with before, you know, that you're thinking either you'll be fine, because that's what I was thinking. Okay, I got shot, I'll be all right. I just have some surgery, go see a specialist and blah, 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 but no, that didn't happen. So, but once you have to come to grips with that, and I think that's probably one of the biggest things that a family has to accept. You have to come to grips with it, and you have to find out what resources are available. You have to just know what's around you, and to know that it's going to be a transition for that person that's actually just lost their sight, and also it's going to be a transition for your family members as well.
Okay, but Ray, I mean, you said that come to grips with it, but you're 17 years old, and being shot. I mean, I know that was devastating, not just to you, but also to your family. Mm-hmm. But you know, I guess I'm just kind of put myself in that place, in that state right then. You know, for you to, you know, wake up at the doctor at the hospital, bandaged, mm-hmm. and the doctor's coming to you saying, okay, you may not be able to see again. I mean, I know that that's devastating, and
yes,
I mean, you
definitely.
had, I'm kind of figuring that you had to have a lot going on. You're 17 years old, just graduating from high school, getting ready to go to college, and it's changed your whole life.
Yeah, definitely. At the time, it's like, what can I do? Mm-hmm. How are people going to perceive you? Mm-hmm. What?
I don't mean to cut you off, but how did people perceive you? You know, how did you feel your friends and perceived you after, you know, knowing that you had, you know, I know the empathy and sympathy is there once you going through that process, but once you've been determined to be legally blind, how were you perceived then? You feel any difference?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, 2 months ago, like I said, I was a senior in high school. Now, you know, a lot of my friends were just graduating or either still in high school. So it's like, you're going to lose a lot of friends. Mm-hmm. Bottom line, you're going to lose a lot of friends. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You're going to lose a lot of friends because, you know, they're not going to be able to deal with it. They may treat you differently, but them core friends that you grew up with are, that know you and been around from day one, they'll still be around.
Okay, when you say deal with it, you were talking about dealing with your blindness, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you overcame that through, your transition.
Mm-hmm.
You want to share just a little bit about your transition from the time that, you were shot. Did they ever catch the perpetrator?
Never caught him, no.
So, but, that seems to be quite prevalent in our communities where the perpetrators aren't being caught, but there are consequences, and you suffered a great consequence, and you overcame it. Share that with us.
Once you finally come to grips with it, and it was really getting your family on board as well, because I know I dealt with my mother who, she took me to a specialist in Chicago. I was at Loyola, I'm at UIC, I'm at this one. Let's go to California this week. I don't know if we're going to do that, boss. One thing my mother used to always do, I tell people, she always put these little pills in my food. I don't know where she found these pills at, but these were supposed to be some magical pills. Because after a while, I didn't want to take them. I'm like, Mom, this ain't going to do nothing. But she would sneak it in the food or whatever. And then I found it one day. I'm like, come on now. But once I finally dealt with that, I began to do some rehabilitation, learning, just Braille, learning how to navigate with a cane, learning how to, label your clothes, learn how to prepare food, clean your home, just things like that. Had to learn those things. It's kind of like I say,
your basics.
Baby steps.
And on learning how to just do the basics, daily tasks. But you also went to college. You went to Purdue University?
Purdue University, Calumet in Hammond, Indiana. Majored in communications in 2000. Didn't even know if I was going to be able to complete college at the time, because when I first started, it was like, well, you should just take 1-2 classes and probably take you about 7 years to get this done. I'm like, okay, that's not a good thing.
Yeah, because oftentimes we find that they want to minimize you because of your blindness. And that's the way our society seems to perceive the condition, when you say.
Yes. But I decided when I first started, I was actually taking summer classes, and that was like a no-no for them. Nah, don't take no summer classes. It's going to be too much for you. I'm like, nah, I'll be all right. I'm not doing anything else. I started to take some summer classes, started up with 2 classes, then I stepped it up to 3 classes during a regular semester. When you're dealing with being totally blind in a new community, you have to actually go to school prior to everyone else attending school. So I'm taking classes over the summer, and also at the same time, I'm learning how to get around campus. I mean, that's the key thing right there. You have to learn to get around campus and be independent if you want to succeed as a person with a disability. Because, people are not going to just help you. The people will sit there and hold the door, but they won't even tell you they got the door open. So it's just really them not knowing, but at the same time, you got to know that they're not always going to help you. So after a while, I learned my way around campus. I started to take 4 or 5 classes, and I wanted to get done with it. Got my BA in communications in 2005. At the same time, I was interning at a few radio stations, because that was my really what I wanted to do, was get into broadcasting. So I interned at a station in Chicago, and also at the same time I was doing a show at a local station in Gary twice a week. Just really trying to get my name out there. But I would tell people this, once I had my first child, I know I needed to get a job. So it was just something that needed to happen.
So life continued on for you. You not only had to learn how to navigate the campus, but you had to learn how to navigate blindness and navigate life in a whole different perspective.
Yes.
And, you to be commended on that. And I tell you, that is just so fantastic. So now you're working, and you're working with what company?
I'm working with a company called Bosma Enterprises in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Okay, and Bosma Enterprises does a great job in our community, and it's because they have great assets like you, individuals like yourself that works there and represents the company well, and you also represent your family well. You have 2 boys?
I have 3 boys.
3 boys. Oh, you've been a busy fellow. Okay, so blindness hadn't held you back, huh? So that's a good thing. So, you know, life continues on. You're not being defined by blindness.
No. Great.
So, gun violence and blindness, you've overcome. And also with this faith, your family's faith in God?
Just with the family's encouragement, faith, just them telling me I could do it. I mean, my mother was definitely a strong influence at the time. It was times, you know, when I was going to college, I'm like, I can't do this no more. I just sit there, I don't want to do it. I don't want to deal with these tapes. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with don't take us, bus transportation. I don't want to deal with it.
But you didn't sit down.
No, I didn't sit down.
That's great. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back to wrap up our show. And Ray, I just want to thank you once again for coming on to the show to share some very in-depth feelings about gun violence and blindness and how this impacted your life. So we'll be right back here on WHMB 40 in a short few minutes.
The National Federation of the Blind knows that blindness is not the characteristic that defines you or your future. Every day we raise the expectations of blind people because low expectations create obstacles between blind people and our dreams. You can live the life you want. Blindness is not what holds you back.
As you just heard from Mr. Ray Montgomery about gun violence and blindness, there's consequences on both sides of the ledger. But the consequence that Ray had to face, his family had to face, the community had to face, it leads to trying to bring some clarity to how it impacts a person and makes them blind. I've met a number of citizens throughout the country that have actually lost their sight through gun violence. And it's, you know, they haven't been defined just by blindness themselves or about the incident. They've overcome the incident. They continue on. And they also, they hear about it oftentimes on the news, all the different violence that's impacting people's lives. So we just want to say, be considerate of one another in our societies. And Ray, I just want to thank you for not allowing blindness to hold you back. So we'll be back next week on our show. We hope to see you then. Take care of yourselves.
The National Federation of the Blind Indiana Monthly Report. For more information, go to nfb-in.org or call 317-205-9226. That's 317-205-9226. The National Federation of the Blind encourages you to live the life you want.